Hello and welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I'm Michael Pinter. I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. Question is, who pays real estate commission in New York? So that's a good question. So I'm going to go through the answers to that first, and then if you stick around to the end, I'm going to tell you a couple of ways where you can avoid paying real estate commissions in New York, ways that I recommend and ways that I don't recommend. So first of all, in general, the answer to who pays a real estate commission is the seller. Usually it's the seller. So a seller lists a property with a realtor, and they agree on how much the commission should be. I'd say typically in my area, it's 4 to 5%. That's typical from what I see. And what's going on with that is that it's not so simple, right? Because in truth, the seller is going to pay, let's say 4%. So the seller sells his house for $500,000. There's $20,000 in commission. That's 4%. But what really happens is that a buyer's agent, if the person who buys the house is represented by an agent, it's not always the case, but it very commonly is, then the listing agent who you signed an agreement with, if you're the seller, is going to split that commission with the buyer's agent. So the listing agent is only going to make 2%, and the buyer's agent is going to make 2%. Now, all of that is coming out of the seller's proceeds. In most cases, the buyer's agent is getting paid from the seller's agent. And in most cases, the buyer's agent is not getting paid by the buyer. It does happen occasionally that either a listing agent won't pay a buyer's agent, right? I've had properties like that, or the buyer agrees with his agent to pay him something. Usually, it's not the case. So, why is that important, right? It's important when you sell because you need to understand that there is room to negotiate with a seller's agent in the event that there is no buyer's agent. Okay, so I really do two things, right? I buy houses, fix them up, and sell them. I'm also became a traditional realtor. I never wanted to be a traditional realtor. I just had all these houses to sell, and we're sick of paying commissions to listing agents when I wanted to control the listing. So I became a real estate agent and then a broker. I have people work for me. But every time I sign an agreement with somebody to list it with, I make it very clear. If there's no buyer's agent, I'm going to charge you less. So I usually charge less than 4% in general, but I charge much less, as low as 2% if there's no buyer's agent. For me, it makes sense. Now, I'm not sure why other people don't do this. To me, it seems pretty simple. If I sign a 4% listing agreement, I'm pretty much agreed to take 2%. If there's no buyer's agent, I should drop it to 3%, I would think, because I'm making all of that. Most people don't do that. They sort of hope that they can double end the deal, which means they can get both ends. This is something you can ask and negotiate with your listing agent before you list with them. Now, let's talk about avoiding real estate commissions completely. So really, there are two general ways to avoid paying real estate commissions. The first is to sell it by yourself. So FSBO, for sale by owner. You can list it on Zillow yourself. You can list it on FSBO.com yourself. I highly recommend that you never do this, and I'm going to explain why. You don't do this because you will never know. Here, well, let me take a step back. The only way to really know if you're getting what your property is worth is to show it to the most amount of people. When you list it with an agent and it goes out on MLS, multiple listing service, the most amount of people are going to see it, and therefore the potential for the buyer who's going to pay the highest price is much higher. If you list it yourself on Zillow, or you list it on a FSBO site, or you put out a sign in front of your house, the chance of a lot of people seeing that is very, very low. Very low. Most people are not looking just on Zillow. Most people are not going to drive by your house. Most people are not looking at FSBO.com. So the chance of you getting the right price is slim. And what I've seen happen is that people put a number in their head and they say, I want 400 for the house, when really the house is worth a lot more, 500,000. And they put it out on they do one of these methods, right? So they do a FSBO.com or a Zillow, or a Zillow listing, or a sign, and somebody says, I'll pay you 400. And they're all excited. I just saved myself all this commission. But did they really save commission? If they sell it for $50,000 or $100,000 less than what it was worth, they lost money on the deal. They made a mistake. You'll never know that, right? Because you don't really know what it's worth. You can guess, you can talk to people, but you're not going to really know. The only way you're going to know is if it's out in the market. So I don't recommend that at all. So what you could do if you really want to avoid paying commission is you can call somebody like me, right? And I'm gonna come to your house, and if the house is in good shape, I'm gonna tell you, listen, I'll pay you a number for it. This is the number I'll pay, and you can avoid commissions. But if it doesn't make sense to sell it to me, I'm going to tell you what you can list it for and what you can get for it. I've said on 1,000 occasions, I've gone into somebody's house. They said, I want to sell it right away. I want to sell it to it. No, they don't say, I want to sell it right away. They say, I want to sell it to an investor because I want to avoid X, Y, and Z. And I'll say, listen, I'll give you a number, but there's no reason for you not to list this house, right? If you're not in a rush and the house is in really good condition, you can just list it. You can list it with me and save some money. Or you can list it with anyone, but I'll give you a number. If you're going to sell the house to an investor, you'll avoid real estate commissions, but you will probably make less money than listing it. Now, obviously, if the house has significant issues, either it's in terrible shape and can't be mortgaged, if it's got permit issues or violation issues or illegal addition issues, some kind of issue that you feel is going to be a problem with the buyer, then an investor might be a good shot for it, a good option for it. But if it's got no issues and it's in good shape, it might make sense to list it. But you want to list it with somebody who's not going to rip you off. Another thing you want to look for when you list is to see how long that person wants to list it for. A typical agent today is going to ask you to list it for a year. That should be a huge red flag. Even 6 months should be a huge red flag. We're in a market now where things go with contract in weeks and things sell in a few months. There is no reason for you to list something that long, right? I don't take listings longer than 3 months personally. And I have everything in contract by then. So I would highly recommend that you are very careful with which listing agent you use. Another a point about listing agent is you got to be very careful if you're related to the agent or if you're friends with the agent. I've seen a lot of terrible situations arise when people trusted their friend or family member. The friend or family member was a typical agent. Typical agent does one deal a year, and they got screwed into a year-long commitment to pay a lot of commission for somebody who wasn't doing the work for them. So I would avoid doing business with friends, and I would avoid listing your house with a friend or a family member because of all the bad situations I've seen. So those are really your two options if you want to avoid commissions. You can list it yourself, which is a really bad idea. You can sell it to an investor, which may or may not be a good idea depending on your situation personally and on the house, on the situation of the property. So I would say, if you want the most money, you should definitely list it, but do not list it with somebody who's going to charge you a lot. Do not list it with somebody who's going to lock you up for a long time, and do not list it with somebody who's not going to give you a different price if in the event that the buyer does not have an agent. Always get a reduction. Why shouldn't you? It's more money for the person. I mean, I'm not saying give them the exact thing, 4% or 2%, but a 4% or a 3%, that seems right. Most of my contracts are 3.5%, 2.5%. They're cheap. But you have to really understand that the seller is the one paying the real estate commission. It's coming out of your net. And that is completely negotiable. If any time a realtor tells you something like, oh, my broker won't allow it, I can't go below it, that's somebody you want to avoid. That's somebody who's not going to really be in control, right? If you want to deal with somebody who has the ability to say, no problem, right? I can negotiate with you. I can charge you less. I can do a shorter agreement with you. Everything's negotiable. There is no such thing as somebody won't allow it. If you're dealing with somebody who does any serious business, they can take a listing for a week if they want, and they can take a listing for 1% if they want. So I would avoid using people who use lines like, hey, my broker won't allow that. So that's who pays a real estate commission in New York. I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in learning more about what I do or how I can help you to do what I do, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Whatever platform you're watching on, please like. The thumbs up really helps me. Here's my thumb. There it is. And keep the comments coming. There are no bad comments. Any comment that's a simple answer, I respond to with an answer. Any comment that I recently did a few topics on, I'll just send you links to the videos. And if it's something new or something I haven't handled in a while, I will do a new video on it based on your comments. So keep the comments coming. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very, very, very much. And I'm trying to stop this and it's not stopping.